Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This past weekend was the first Victory Road tournament of Regulation I with a massive 263 total players. So tons of data for us to analyze right here and valuable data as well. It's not like some random 12-person tour on a Tuesday night. This was a upscale tournament. You had to pay money to enter. So there's definitely going to be a lot of good and valuable takeaways from this metagame that we are going to analyze today. It will be a little bit of a faster breakdown as we are only like a week into Regulation I. So I really am just going to kind of point out the concepts that I think we're going to see moving forward, some things that I like from certain teams, some things that maybe I don't like from certain teams. But overall, I think we should just jump straight into things. And we're going to start with this first place team. Surprise, surprise, first place team. Why not start there, right? Shadow, Zamazenta. And guys, this was, at least on my opinion, the team to beat going into this tournament. This team was the talk of the town. This was the core to beat, right? Shadow, Zamazenta. I rated it super high on my tier list as well. They just cover each other's weaknesses super well. And a couple things I want to take away here from this team in particular is the Life Orb Terra Dark Shadow. And in fact, the Terra Water Rillaboom as well is something that I didn't see earlier when I was looking at these results, but I see it now and I think it's very cool. Also, shout out to Terra Bug Incineroar. I've been saying that for a while now in Regulation I, that's going to be good, and I'm happy to see it gets the justice that it deserves. Terra Bug Incineroar is my GOAT in this format. Anyways, besides the point, Terra Dark Shadow I think is a very cool adaptation, because I think a lot of these Shadow Zamazenta teams, or Shadows in general in this format, are really leaning towards that Focus Sash Terra Ghost. And now all of a sudden it's like, my Calyrex just beats your Calyrex, what are you going to do? And I think that is absolutely massive, and I think it's going to come up a lot more, and we're going to see the meta develop into this more so, not necessarily slower paced Shadow, but this more defensive Shadow in terms of the Terra type, right? Because like, I love the Terra Ghost offense, haha, all of a sudden just Astral Barrage, you know? But I think, maybe this Life Orb one, maybe it's able to live a Scarf Surging Strikes from that Urshifu if it decides to Terra Water, right? There's a lot of ways you can work this Calyrex into your favor, especially on a team like this, because you are the fastest piece in the format, right? I think slapping a Focus Sash on it with Terra Ghost is like fine, but I really like this adaptation of Life Orb and Terra Dark. I definitely think this is something we're going to see as the meta continues to develop. Other than that, I mean, I don't want to call this team like super standard, but there's nothing crazy here. Like I said, the Terra Dark Life Orb is cool tech. Bug Instant I respect, I love a lot. Terra Water, I think that's just you're going to go water or fire based on what you feel the team needs here. I think both are viable moving forward. Other than that, everything is pretty standard. You got your Dragon Zamazenta, Body Press, Steel Move, Wide Guard. Absolutely nothing crazy there. Same with the Ivy Cudgel Ogerpon here. It's just standard, right? And like I know you guys can't see the Urshifu because my big head's in the way. But once again, it's standard Urshifu. It does have U-turn instead of Protect, which actually it's Choice Scarf. What am I talking about? It's Choice Scarf. Ignore me. Absolutely standard Urshifu. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, really cool team. Back over here, second place team, guys. Can we please stop using Dondozo? Can we as a community just like somehow stop talking about Dondozo and just kind of let this thing like slide under the radar? And this is like the opposite of Ho-Oh. You know how like Ho-Oh, every regulation that it's allowed, everyone's like, this is Ho-Oh's time to shine. Dondozo is the exact opposite. The format keeps getting more and more aggressive, and everybody's like, this is not the format for Dondozo. Dondozo's gonna fall off. This is the one where it falls off. And then yet here we are, Dondozo getting second place in a massive tournament. Crazy concept, right? It's very similar to if you saw the top 8 worlds placing team with the Assault Vest, Miraidon, the Dondozo, and then obviously the Chiyu. I think it was Chiyu Fluttermane at World. No, it was Chiyu Goldengo. Was it Goldengo at Worlds? Regardless, though, we're not worried about Worlds right now, considering this is Regulation I, or last year's Worlds, that is. But adding a Calyrex Shadow to this team just kind of makes it very obnoxious to go up against. You really don't know how your opponent is going to approach this game. And this is just one of those, I hate to say it, but the new version of the 2-2-2 in Regulation I, at least early on, right? Like you've got, the Sneasler, Miraidon lead. The Electric Seed is very cool. Very good speed control for your team as well. Toxic Spikes is wild, by the way. I don't know what to say. I'm not a big Sneasler guy. I hate Sneasler, but this was a cool tech. I like, as much as I want to hate on this team because it's like a Dondozo, toxic spikes, and then just like absolutely massive damage from Shadow Rider and Miraidon. Like, as much as I want to hate on this team, it's got some really, really cool techs, especially for early metagame. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Once again, we're seeing the Terra Dark and the Life Orb. Toxic spikes is really, really cool because you get to lead Sneasler. If they try to like make a passive play around like Calyrex or Miraidon, you can easily start setting up those spikes. You're super, super fast as well. With Terra Ghost, I think if you want spikes, I'm 99% sure you get toxic spikes up like anytime that you want it up, as long as you're willing to commit Terra, which I don't know how often you'd want to do, but it is something you could go for if you really desperately needed those spikes up. So I definitely think that's a pretty cool tech there. Definitely something that's cool where it's like you can lead like Calyrex, Sneasler, spikes, and then just have Dozo in the back, or Sneasler Miraidon spikes and then Dozo in the back, right? Like, tons of options for that to become like valuable for your team. And then you just have the stall out Dozo, where in a format where like, you know, everything is boosting. The Zamazenta boosts early, the Zacian just gets the immediate boosts. You know, Calyrex gets the Astral Barrage boost, maybe a nasty plot here or there. Maybe, you know, you get the Zamazenta dog boost, which I think I said twice, but you know what? Zamazenta's everywhere. I'm going to say it twice. Really, really cool concept here. Once again, not a huge fan of Dozo. Can we please just let this thing go? But I do have to give credit where credit's due. It definitely is a pretty cool team. All right, shout outs to my boy Mike here with Miraidon Lunala. Absolutely super, super cool core. One of the cores that I think is super underexplored as well. Lunala with that Electric Seed really does patch a lot of the issues that Miraidon had, and a lot of that is just, you know, the hard Trick Room stuff, and Lunala does a very good job of stopping that. You get Wide Guard versus all the Calyrexes in this format, and just the Electric Seed boost and utilizing these restricteds to merge together, I think is a very, very cool idea, right? And that, I feel like, is the issue with Miraidon Calyrex Ice right now, which was kind of the Miraidon build that was super hyped up coming into Regulation I. And it's not that the two pieces don't work well together, is that they kind of support each other by being separate pieces, which is not bad. But I think here, this is more of like that team atmosphere, you know? It's like, you ever played like a game of like an actual sports game, and it's like the team just doesn't gel and it just doesn't feel good, but then when the team is like, yeah, the power of friendship and it works kind of thing, you know, this is like a full-on team. This is what it feels like. It's like this was a team. This was like everything just went together so well on this team, especially for an early format team. I think it's very, very strong right now, right? Like I said, everything just kind of gels. The Calyrex, Ice Rider, and Miraidon, it feels a little clunky. You kind of have to get reads right. Maybe lines where you're going Volt Switch, Trick Room to get Cali onto the board still feel a little linear right now, and that team really hasn't found its footing. However, here, this feels like it's going to have its footing, right? Lunala doesn't feel like it needs Trick Room nearly as much as Calyrex Ice. You put on a lot of pressure. Just, you don't die with Lunala. So now I have a piece that's gonna take out the entire format pretty much, and a piece that's pretty much not dying in one hit, and that just allows me to basically do whatever I want. You now support this with something like a Chi-Yu and Tailwind with Whimsicott, and then, you know, Iron Hands loves Miraidon. Why not have a Lunala Iron Hands Miraidon core? I think that's super, super solid. I think the team itself, very, very well built. Looking forward to see how these Miraidon Lunala comps actually evolve, because I think there's a lot of potential here. And this overall just feels like such a good build right now that it's tough to say what I would change. I wouldn't change anything. Obviously, it just got third. What am I going to do? Change something? No, this looks like a very solid team. I'm very curious to see if this Miraidon Lunala core continues, or if it just ends up being like oh yeah, this was like an early format team, because I don't think it is an early format team. Like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm a little less sold on it, but I really do like I don't know how well it holds out. I'm less sold on how well it holds out, but as of right now, I really think this is a very strong core, especially with the metagame being so fast and Lunala just being able to eat virtually any attack. Then we have, once again, just back to Zamazenta, Kali Shadow. We see a little bit of a different style approach to close it out, but at the end of the day, we're still seeing the instant, we're still seeing the Urshifu, we're still seeing the redirecting grass type, just necessarily a different piece here with the Pelipper over the Rillaboom kind of thing, right? Obviously, you have the Ogerpon on the first place team as well, so a little bit different build, but overall, pretty similar stuff. And here we're seeing that, like I said, that Terra Ghost Sash Calyrex Shadow that's just meant to do a lot of damage, and do a lot of damage twice, right? It's very rare. It's very tough for this Calyrex Shadow to go down in one hit because you're going to have to double it. And if you're doubling the Calyrex Shadow, it's still so fast. So a lot of the times you'll get your attack off. They may double you and take you down, but then you're getting another piece, your other piece to attack. Or they don't double you, then you're getting 2 attacks. And Zamazenta is not a Pokemon that dies quickly either. So if they're not doubling Cali Shadow for the kill, chances are they're not killing Zamazenta. And then from there, you just support this well with Redirection. You support this well with Intimidate and Fake Out Cycle. Terra Fairy Instant, I think, is another shout out. But something that resists fighting. As you can see, this is starting to pick up in usage right now. And it just basically allows you to play into these style teams of Calyrex, Zamazenta, where I can Terra, eat the attack from Zama, eat the attack from Cali, and then actually become a problem back, especially this AV variant, where all of a sudden, you know, if I don't need to Terra, I wall Calyrex for days, and if I do need to Terra, it's still not that big of a deal, and I can still put a lot of pressure back their way, especially these Terra Ghost ones, where my knockoff is still doing all kinds of damage. Developer here probably helps aid in the Calyrex Shadow Koraidon matchup, and Koraidon is a Pokemon that's going to pick up in usage, so I do like the Pelipper Metacall here. I don't know how long Pelipper actually sits around in this metaphor, but as of right now, it was definitely a pretty solid option for this tour. That's top 4 out of the way. We do see Cali Shadow Miraidon right now. Sorry, that is not that team. That is not what that is. That is Cali Shadow Zacian. I got the wrong broken offensive Pokemon. Anyways, really quickly on this one, guys. This is a core that I think is going to potentially see a lot of usage, and I rated it a little low on my tier list, strictly because of the weakness to Incin, right? And if you can get around that Incineroar weakness, I think it is a very strong team. Obviously, here you've got the Ogerpon. You can have the Urshifu Water as well. Very strong options, but nothing out of the ordinary here. The only real kind of crazy move I see here is the Imprison onto Cali Shadow. And I think that's something to talk about in general. I'll get into this point a little bit more later, but the coverage move, the third move on Cali Shadow, that felt so rigid in Regulation G, is now super open and super viable to be tested pretty much with anything. We've seen Encore, I've seen Will-O-Wisp, I've seen Terra Blast, I've seen Disable, right? Just so many different options, and now I've seen Imprison, right? So many different options on this last move on Cali Shadow, and I think this is a very cool option versus opposing Cali Shadows as well. I don't want to play the Speed Tie. That's fine. I can play it the first time, right? Go down to my Sash and then click Imprison. It feels very strong. I like that concept moving forward and just getting to be the anti-meta kind of approach. So I think that's a kind of a cute tech. I don't know how far it fully goes when the format develops, but overall, I think we're not seeing anything too crazy here. The Terra Water Zacian, I think, is correct. I think there's 2 ways to look at this team. You're either going Terra Water Zacian or you're going Terra Water, Terra Blast, Cali Shadow. One of these 2 restricteds, I think, in my opinion, right now, has to be Terra Water. Obviously, they went for the Zacian here. Very solid squad. I would have almost liked to see a Scarf here because you're not always getting Tornadus, but hey, you know what? It did very well in this tour. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm just kind of approaching, kind of seeing what's going on. I'm just really just talking. I probably don't even know what I'm talking about 90% of the time, let's be honest. But either way, really cool team. I like the taunt. I think Mystic Water does hit super hard. And if you're going to get Tailwind up, Scarf's not super necessary, right? Just the way my playstyle goes, I would prefer a Scarf, but that might just be me. Either way, I think that's a change you could make. I don't know. Obviously, very well-built team. But once again, nothing crazy. I do want to point out knockoff on Rillaboom. That is something to look at here. A lot of players really just lock into like U-turn or high horsepower, and they just kind of like, I don't need to change that. But knockoff here is very cool, especially with the huge uptick in Cali Shadow now. Like, I think it was like 70% usage in day 2 or something close to that. Or in Top Cut, or it was something. It was a crazy percentage in Top Cut. Get into usage stats later, but knockoff very cool on Rillaboom there. Overall, I like this build for the Zacian Cali Shadow stuff. I think it's very cool. Then we have Marco in 6th tier. And Marco's been talking about this Cali Shadow Terapagos, okay? And I still don't believe in it. It's cool. It looks like maybe it's cool. It looks like maybe it does something. I don't know. I'm just not a Terapagos believer, and I've been a Terapagos hater since day 1. But I see the concept, right? Terapagos does not like going up against those fighting types. Calyrex Shadow has no issues taking care of those, right? Calyrex Shadow doesn't like playing the mirror. Terapagos has no issue being in the mirror. So I definitely see the concept of these 2. So it's definitely interesting, and I'm very curious to see how it actually evolves as the format goes, because I think it's going to be around. At this point, I think this has proven itself as like this is a decent core. This is a good core that could see solid results. Now, is it similar to the old Terrapagos teams where I felt that it needed a really good player to pilot it in order to see that next level result? And I'm starting to see that right now because I really haven't seen too many crazy results from Terrapagos. But right now, I would say this is probably the best Terrapagos team in the format. Right? And once again, it's nothing crazy. And I hate to say it's nothing crazy basically for every team. But I think a lot of these concepts are very similar right now into format, especially early metagame. Right? You've got the Ensign, the Rillaboom, you got your support pieces to support your two big restricteds that you feel like have good synergy for each other. Then you have an Ogerpon or an Amoonguss for like the Follow Me. And then normally it's either slap on an Urshifu, slap on a big damage dealer, and you kind of go from there. Right, that's really generally the way these teams are at least shaping up early metagame. When the format is this new, it's very simple. I don't want to say it's simple to team build because it is very difficult to get a well-functioning team. But in concept, it's very simple to kind of just have 6 Pokemon that in theory work. Right, as the format develops, you're going to have to maybe start leaning at a little bit different stuff, like maybe trying to find like those other underused Pokemon that maybe sneak in and now have a niche, right? But early format is very simple to just, these guys work. We know these guys are good. Let's add them to this team, and the team can probably function pretty well, right? And that's what we're seeing on a lot of these top teams right now. But once again, Terrapagos, I still think it's a fraud, but maybe I got to give it a little more credit. Obviously, Marco had a pretty solid result for top 8. Now we're getting into some Koraidon stuff. Really aggressive, by the way, here with the Koraidon Cali Shadow stuff, which I think is super cool, right? And this is a concept of a team that I think is really, really strong moving forward. And I think one of the big things about this team is you want to be very aggressive. You want this core to be able to go on the offense immediately. Naturally, Cali Shadow Koraidon goes very, very strongly into the Zamazenta CSR stuff. I worry on this team about Terra Ghost Life Orb. I think that's absolutely insane. But like I said, you want to go on the offense, right? But this scares me if I'm going to lose like a speed tie. This scares me that I'm going to lose a speed tie to opposing Cali Shadow, and that there's nothing I can do about that at that point, right? I don't have the Terra Dark like some of the other Life Orb variants, and that gets super scary for me. But overall, maybe you don't need it, right? Obviously, you have your own Scarf Chi-Yu for the matchup, for the Cali Shadow mirror. Brute Bonnet with Sucker Punch is also very cute for the mirror. And then you can also just, maybe get a Flame Charge up and outpace the Cali Shadow. You have your own Ditto for the Cali Shadow mirror, right? So as aggressive as this is, as scared of the Cali Shadow mirror as I am, they seem to have covered the rest of it very, very well as well. Substitute, once again, back to that tech move on this Cali Shadow, right? That third move. We've seen it all now at this point. I don't know what else we're going to see. I saw somebody the other day, I think they commented on one of my videos, and they were like, I'm testing Koraidon Cali Shadow with Solar Beam. And I'm like, you know what? There's so much opening in that third move slot that's kind of cool. I don't think that's something that's going to stick around, but there is so much opening in this third move right now that I'm very intrigued to see what actually ends up becoming meta, or if it is just going to be, that wild card, right? Much more rigid, much more fluent than that rigid Calyrex we saw in Regulation G. And I'm excited to see where that takes this format. Like, I think having that second restricted really opens this up for Calyrex. And of course, the top 8 team, Miraidon Zamazenta. This is something that really hasn't been talked about all that much. And I don't necessarily love the concept at first sight. But once again, it's 2 of the best Pokemon in the format in terms of restricteds. And you really can't go wrong. This is basically Joe UX9's team from the last little bit of Regulation G with the Zamazenta slapped on. I believe that's over what he had an Urshifu on, right? And other than that, it's pretty much very similar. I think Strugglebug might be different as well. But either way, regardless, you have that Miraidon, you have that Zamazenta, just 2 of the best Pokemon in the format. You're now supporting these guys with screens. Like, Zamazenta behind screens terrifies me. Like, how am I killing this, right? And then all of a sudden, your piece that's meant to just blow stuff up with screens now lift stuff, right? Not necessarily a new concept, but I think a very strong team nonetheless. And I'm curious to see if Miraidon Zama actually becomes something moving forward, right? Once again, the Volcarona kind of didn't really ever see too much play in Regulation G. I don't think it's going to see too much play in Regulation I, but it is a very strong option into opposing Zamazenta. And I think that's definitely something I wanted to kind of point out because it is a very strong option. You got covers opposing Zamazenta, covers opposing CIR, which is very, very good. And actually the Quiver Dance set is very cool as well because with a couple Spadef boosts, you can just kind of maybe sit in front of those special attackers as well. And then all of a sudden you're just chilling and you become pretty much a wall behind screens. Very, very cool concept. Once again, nothing new, but very cool way to bring an existing team and update it, I think, into the Regulation I metagame. Probably going to go a little less in depth for some of these next teams, guys. I'm not going to really start clicking on paste. I just really wanted to analyze the top 8, right? Once again, very similar Kali Shadow Zamazenta build. I am curious to see what item is on this Kali Shadow, so I will take a quick look. Once again, there is that Terra Ghost Focus Sash, which we've seen time and time again. So that's pretty cool to see. We also get to see Terrapagos Koraidon, which honestly is kind of wild. I was not ready for this. This core, in my opinion, doesn't make that much sense. But this is what I like about Double Restricted. You get to do stuff that normally just you would look at and kind of be like, huh? And then all of a sudden it like works, you know? So this is pretty cool, right? You've got the Life Orb Koraidon for massive damage. And then you've got your kind of that slower game plan with the Terrapagos. It's a little weird. Like I don't see the concept on paper. But at the same time, you have 6 good Pokemon, right? And I hate to call Terrapagos a good Pokemon, but I think it's, at least right now in Regulation G, I can't really call it a fraud anymore. So you have 6 really good Pokemon in this team, right? I think a lot of people aren't really still ready for Sash Fluttermane, right? Fluttermane has seen a drop-off, especially with the addition of the second restricted, where I can just have a Calyrex as my ghost type now, right? So I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about Fluttermane. So I definitely think Koraidon Fluttermane is a very good core, right? Koraidon Fluttermane Ogerpon was something I was super, super happy about in Regulation G and thought it was very, very good. So seeing it again here and having success is cool, right? Once again, then you got your Rilla Instant, right? Nothing new there. Terra Poison's pretty cool. Once again, resisting that body press. I think that's something we're going to see, resisting it instead of being Terra Ghost, right? Just something that's going to allow you to live the body press into barrage combination. And I think that's nothing crazy. I think a lot of players have picked up on that at that point. So that's something I definitely think is kind of around. Terrapagos there. I don't know. I still don't fully understand this synergy. I truly don't. Because like you really want Koraidon to have the weather. And you really want Terrapagos to kind of be turning off the weather. Like, I definitely see it, right? And you can definitely position it. So it's kind of like, it's almost like the dual primals from back in the day, right? Like, you would turn off your own weather when you cycled in and out, which was always weird and a weird concept for me to really wrap my head around. So, like, maybe it plays a little differently. And definitely once you get your Terra up with Terrapagos, you can then switch out Koraidon, get Koraidon back in, right? So it's definitely play aroundable, workable, right? And obviously it's got something going for it if it was able to do this well in this kind of a tour, right? So definitely a really cool team there. Here we go. We've got our first Kali Ice Miraidon team. And I know it said it needed kind of an update. And I don't know if this is necessarily it. This feels a little bit 2-2-2-ish to me. Like you've got kind of like your rain mode. You've got your 2 big restricteds, and then you've got your double support, right? Like you've got your Iron Hands Miraidon mode, you got your Rock Pond Kali Ice mode, and then you got your rain mode, right? So it is an interesting concept. Because I think a lot of people and a lot of players have been trying to put Calyrex Ice onto Miraidon teams, right? We're trying to put Calyrex Ice onto the Arubega team. We're trying to put Calyrex Ice. I think I've seen a couple people try to put it on like the Joe Grimmsnarl team. But I haven't really seen a lot of players take Miraidon and try to add it to the Calyrex Ice team, which I feel like this is what this team is trying to accomplish here, because barring the Miraidon here, this is pretty much a pretty quote-unquote standard-ish Kali Ice team. You know, you got your Pelipper, your Urshifu, your Calyrex, and your Ogerpon. That's like pretty standard for a Kali Ice team from Reg G, right? Iron Hands being that fake-out user of choice in this case, and especially, you know, when you have a Miraidon, it makes tons of sense. Maybe it was an Incineroar here in Reg G, but Reg I like this concept, right? I think taking Miraidon onto the Kali Ice team makes a little bit more sense right now than putting Miraidon, instead of putting Calyrex onto the Miraidon team. Cool team. Definitely probably more of the way I think these teams should be approaching. Still a little clunky to me. It still looks like it's going to depend on leads, which I'm a little worried about for this core, right? Very strong core, don't get me wrong, and I think it is going to be a strong core. I just don't know if we're ever going to find that concept with this core where it's like, yeah, it can just be that thing and function very fluently. We don't have that right now. Another Calyrex Shadow Koraidon stuff. Once again, very aggressive with this core. No Tailwind, but still very aggressive with the Cali Shadow Koraidon. This actually might be Life Orb as well. No, it is Spell Tag Cali Shadow, right? I knew it was going to be a boosting item. Kind of had to be. I thought it was Life Orb Koraidon, but I did misremember there. But either way, once again, just this aggressive concept, right? You got the double follow me and I'm going to send my damage. And then if I need to support, I can support. I think that's really the way the meta is shaping up right now, especially with these Koraidon Cali Shadow teams. But overall, once again, similar concept to the rest of the stuff, right? Once again, you've got your two big damage dealers, you got your support, and then you got your Incinerilla, right? Like early meta, this seems to be the way to go before people start really trying to break these cores. And trust me, we're going to see people try to break this whole too restricted Incinerilla follow me. We're going to see people try to break this, and I'm sure we will be able to break it. But as of right now, this is kind of that standard kind of way to slap teams together. Back-to-back Terapagos, by the way, here, which is actually kind of wild, if you have to ask me about it, because that's kind of crazy, right? Like, I wasn't expecting it, but once again, that Calyrex Shadow Terapagos core, this is not something I was fully expecting on my radar, but this is the three of them in top 16 now. Yeah, I really got to stop sleeping on this core. I'm not going to click on these guys. I think I'm going to just double check that none of them are like jump scare specs. But yeah, similar concept, Combine stuff with the sash on the Cali, and then you go one more over to this one, and once again, leftovers Combine stuff with the sash on the Cali, right? So like that's kind of the concept of that core right now. Definitely interested to see if that core does get out of early metagame, because I feel like we always have these teams that are like, yeah, this team is like solid, and then as the metagame actually fully develops, and like by the time we get that first regional, it ends up kind of just dying off. I feel like we see that a lot, and I wonder if that's going to be the case for this team, or if it is going to find a way to actually remain, you know, useful as Regulation I continues. Miraidon, Calyrex Ice again. I will click on this one because it does have the Iron Bundle. And this is like I was talking about earlier. This is, they took a Miraidon team and added the Calyrex Ice, right? So like, you know, you remove the Cali Ice here. This is just a normal Miraidon team from Regulation G. Once again, this one scares me. If I'm not in Trick Room here, my Calyrex Ice, in my opinion, isn't doing a whole lot. I don't have the Tailwind to keep Calyrex Ice at least a little bit useful, which is a little spooky. You do have the Icy Wind on the Iron Bundle if you really want to rely on that for speed control. But overall, once again, you're taking Miraidon and Cali Ice, two incredibly solid Pokemon. They cover each other's weaknesses very, very well. And you're just supporting them really well on what's already basically a proven team in Miraidon, Farigiraf, Ogerpon hands. That's nothing new, right? You did change your speed control for Bundle instead of the Whimsicott here, which I think I'm okay with. A lot of the times you want to have grass types moving forward to beat Miraidon, and having two ice types is a surefire way that those grass types are going to have a little bit more of an uphill battle versus your Miraidon team. So I don't hate this concept. I really like the concept. Still, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the way I like to play the game. But a lot of these early Miraidon Cali Ice builds, I don't know. They just feel like I need to really get the lead right, because my pivot ability and my switching and the way I like to cycle games, I don't see that here. It feels a little clunky. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just got to adapt to the format better as well, right? That could just be my personal opinion on the format, right? Like, it might be a perfectly fine team. It might play normal. And maybe the whole concept of the format is to be a little bit more aggressive like this. So, only time will tell there. But as a balanced player, I'm really hoping it settles down a little bit. But that's going to be pretty much it for the top 15. I am going to scroll super quick here. Once again, we see Cali Shadow Miraidon. Nothing, I'll just kind of point out any jump scare. We get to see our first our first Swordfish team, Kyogre. I've been saying Koraidon so often I can't say Kyogre anymore, I guess. First Kyogre Zacian team. Very interesting. Once again, with the actually less offensive than I thought. I really thought these cores were going to like fully need to have Tailwind. But obviously rocking the Thunder Wave onto Grimmsnarl, I would assume. I'll cover it quickly just because it is the first Swordfish, and I think Swordfish is something that we're going to see. But yeah, once again, rocking that Thunder Wave there. Pretty aggressive overall. Mystic Water over here. Terra Fairy, Play Rough on the Zacian. So super aggressive build on it, but not with the speed control that I expected. I expected a team like this to have that Tailwind, but the Thunder Wave into screens definitely makes a lot of sense. It was good in the past. I'm sure it'll be good again. I think maybe we have to wait for the metagame to settle, but this is not a bad showing from Swordfish. Obviously, first tour of the format, I would have liked to see it do better as a Swordfish believer myself, but we also see one down here in 23rd. So it was in and around the top, and I think that's good enough. That's why I'm still going with these kind of the top 32 teams, which I think is what we got. Maybe we even got down to 50 here. But regardless, I'm going to quickly scroll because I think there's a lot to be said that may have missed Top Cut, but since it's so early in the format, I think a lot can be said for some of these teams. Right, Miraidon Lunala, again, interesting to see with the treads time this time, similar to the EUIC team that got second. Kali Ice Lunala looks like a pretty hard Trick Room core. That's one adaptation that I see those hard Trick Room cores adapting to, so that's cute to see. Once again, Swordfish. Lunala Terapagos feels like a watered down version of the Kali Shadow Terapagos stuff. However, you now get 2 restricted that are very, very difficult to take out. My concern with this is it gets a little bit too, I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to be a little bit slower. And I think that's very susceptible in this metagame to just getting bombarded by super offense. Otherwise, I think the concept of the core is very strong, right? Very similar to the Kali Shadow stuff. You know, you're just going to support these 2 pieces. In this case, they're not going to die. But it does get susceptible to if your opponent plays a super, super aggressive metagame. And right now, the metagame is super offensive, right? So very cool way to try and slow it down. I just feel like there might be that weakness there. But overall, still a cool team. Just feels a little worse right now than the Kali Shadow variants. But cool concept overall. Then we got Kali Zama. Frostmoth. Why is there a Frostmoth? What's going on here? Kali Shadow Zama. Kali Shadow Zama. We do see our Kyogre Zamazenta here as well, which is definitely a very respectable Kyogre build. A lot to say. I think there's a lot of development to be had out of those cores. I don't love the concept fully, but overall, I mean, it's Kyogre and a big steel type. 2 very good restricteds. I think you're going to see it do well this format. Once again, another Lunala Terapagos. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Hey, maybe I just don't know what I am talking about. Maybe this is my bad. Either way, super, super cool team, right? Obviously has performances, so maybe I did rate it super low for no real reason. Maybe it's good. Once again, just feels susceptible to that huge offense. I wonder if they built together. Is that effectively the same team? That is effectively the same 6 Pokemon. So I don't know if there's minor spread differences or if had they built together or something like that. But either way, cool concept of a team. Definitely the bulkier version of it, but it's cool. Miraidon Zamazenta, again, I think we saw one up there earlier, which is cool to see. Then again, just the other standard similar stuff, right? Calyrex Miraidon, once again, this was put on an Erubega core on that Miraidon comp. Terapagos, why were there 2 of them? I saw one and I was like, what's going on? But now there's 2 of them? Once again, similar. That might be the exact same team, actually. This looks very similar. Oh, never mind. Choppleberry Instant is crazy. They're cooking. But once again, the Sash Flutter, the Ogerpon, Koraidon Terapagos, right, with the Incinerilla. Choppleberry's cool. I do kind of respect that. So now you kind of don't have to Terra in front of that Zamazenta, and you can still eat the Body Press and the Astro Barrage, which is very cool to see. It also might deter them from actually clicking the Body Press into you, which is an interesting concept. That's definitely something that could come out of this in an interesting development. We're curious to see if that becomes an item on Incin. A little weird. Actually, no, you can't even eat. What am I talking about? You can't eat the Choppleberry. You can't eat the Choppleberry when Calyrex is on the board, which is kind of concerning. I don't know what's going on there now. Hold on a second. What? Anyways, it's still a cool team. Don't get me wrong. It's still a super cool team, and maybe they know something I don't, right? Maybe they got something cooking that I don't, right? Which is cool to see if that does become something. But I think with the Calyrex, it's a little less likely. I think just a couple more standard. Or I don't want to say standard because it's super early metagame, but couple more Miraidon Kali Ice teams, which similar to stuff we've talked about, but I think the concept with that team right now is really that Iron Hands is that key piece, which is not really all that surprising, but the Miraidon Kali Ice Hands just is that core right now, and I think it's very strong. We're going to go into some usage stats real quick. Looking at the pairings, once again, 19% day 1. This is, once again, that core that everybody expects to be doing super well. Same with both of them, and they both converted very well going into day 2. They both actually went up in usage going into day 2. These first 2 cores, these 2 things check out to me. Nothing super, super surprising there going on in terms of those numbers. Kali Shadow Koraidon was a core I expected to do well, and honestly, it's pretty on par right there. There's nothing too wild out there. That's about a conversion I expected. Kyogre, Zacian, I did expect to do a little bit better. Obviously, having 17 into tournament and only converting to 2 of them actually making day 2 is a little weird. I would have liked to see the numbers on how many of them maybe went X3 at this tournament, because I feel like this core should be doing a little bit better than what we've seen. However, it's still kind of on par, still a decent core to look at. We see Lunala, Koraidon actually 0 make day 2 out of 13 being used, which is a little weird, but I do when I played this, it felt a little slow, right? I really wanted Koraidon to be able to allow Lunala to do more, but I felt that I ended up finding that Koraidon just didn't do enough damage to really enable Lunala. Whereas these Lunala cores that I see doing well, they tend to be beside these Pokemon that are really allowing Lunala to be that bulky piece. And you see that on the Miraidon here, right? Miraidon, I think, just puts on so much pressure that all of a sudden, Lunala is allowed to be that super bulky piece because Miraidon is killing all the frail pieces. And then, you can just outbulk the bulky pieces with Lunala and win damage trades. So I think Koraidon, not quite the offensive presence that's beside Lunala. However, type synergy-wise, I think that core is probably still going to see some usage similar to the Cali Shadow variants that you are seeing doing well right now. So maybe it just needed the metagame to slow down a tad bit. But overall, interesting to see 0 make day 2. Cali Shadow Miraidon, low usage, surprisingly, for what I expected coming into this tournament. Overall, though, pretty consistent with what I'm expecting. Similar usage from day 1 to day 2, so nothing too much to worry about there. Something normal. Zacian, Miraidon, not a core that I really had on my radar. Once again, surprising number for people using it, by the way, compared to some of the other stuff. Like, I feel like more people should be on. Like, in my head, I feel like there's a lot more Koraidon Lunala teams than there are Miraidon Miraidon, I don't know why my brain won't function today, but for Miraidon Zacian teams, right? Like, I feel like in my head, there's a lot more, but in reality, there's only 3 more. That just seems kind of weird, But overall, cool core. Surprised it didn't make day 2. I feel like one of them would have broke through, right? But seeing 0 is a little bit concerning, but maybe it's just the way the core is being built right now. Interesting to note, though, that 0 did make it. Yeah. Terrapagos, Cali Shadow. Only 9 in the tournament. 4 of those 9 converted. This core converted well. And once again, guys, these are early usage stats. It's literally the first massive tournament of the format. So it's very tough to justify, right? Are these cores the best of the best right now? But it's definitely a very good indication of what we're looking at for at least the next couple weeks, which is kind of why I'm going a little bit more in depth as I go here. But, you see this core, right? It really didn't have that much usage. No one was talking about this. And then all of a sudden, I think it caught a lot of people off guard. I don't think people were really prepped or ready for this style of team. And you see that in that conversion rate, right? I don't know how strong it's going to be now that it's kind of on people's radar in this metagame, right? Now that people are like ready for it. I don't know if it's like a fully like, yeah, this team is like still solid, or if it was just kind of there as like a quote unquote jump scare sort of thing. We kind of talked about the Miraidon Lunala stuff already. Lunadon, surprising to see at 10th, I think. I think there's a couple other cores I may have put above this to see in usage. But overall, like I said, we don't actually see any in day 2. So maybe not a great day for Lunala Groudon. My big issue with it is similar to the other, like the Koraidon Lunala stuff, it didn't put on enough. Groudon doesn't exert enough pressure to really allow Lunala, in my opinion, to be what Lunala wants to be in this format. And I feel like on these types of teams, Lunala obviously probably going to go Meteor Beam stuff, or more often than not going to go Meteor Beam stuff. Even on the Koraidon stuff, though, right? And I think Lunala, yes, Meteor Beam set is very, very good. However, right now in the format, I think it just wants to be the support restricted beside an absolutely massive threat. And I don't see that from the Groudon or the Koraidon at this moment. I think they're both very good teams. They do cover each other's weakness well. I just think this one potentially gets overrun by some of the faster stuff in the format without enough upside. However, I think this has potential moving forward. I think that's pretty much all there is to say. I could go over individual usage, but it's a concept. It's a core. I don't really need to care about overall single usage, right? There's nothing else at the bottom of this page. I guess like non-restricted stuff, but we saw it, guys. It was a bunch of instant Urshifu, Rillaboom, right? Ogerpon stuff. Like, this is nothing crazy new, right? This is this is something we talked about all the entire video, right? I'm not going to really be too worried about this usage stats, and then yeah, that's going to pretty much do it there. But overall, guys, Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta, a lot of stuff that like we kind of expected, but also a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily expect to do this well this early. I expected, you know, Swordfish to do a little bit better early on. We didn't get to see that. Didn't expect, you know, Terrapagos Cali Shadow to have 3 in top 16. Like, what's going on with that, right? So definitely some cool things to take away from this. But with that, guys, if you guys do enjoy this type of content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help with the channel, and of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.